Welcome. Have you ever had a time where you saw this demo of this great tool? It has this awesome UI, it has these great dashboards, lots of colors, lots of information, and you looked at it and you said, oh, this is gonna be so useful. And then you got to it and you never used it again. This is exactly what happened to me at Atlassian, where we were putting in place New Relic, and New Relic was awesome, and it has lots of great dashboards and lots of great colors, and it looks really useful. And then we put it in place and then never looked at it again, because you have to go back to the dashboard again and again to get any value out of it, and that's just not part of your process, and so you don't do that. Well, that is also the problem that we were seeing as we adopted DORA metrics and our customers adopted DORA metrics, and that's why this is the program to watch to see a solution to this problem, so you can turn what was exciting about DORA metrics and keep that excitement as you improve. Welcome to Sleuth TV Live. My name is Don Brown. I am your host. At Sleuth TV Live, we are a show to talk about DORA metrics, using DORA metrics, in particular looking how our product, my product, I guess it's all of our products, Sleuth, tries to help you in your DORA metrics journey to get more value out of it, to change your organizations for the better. We have a few people saying hello. Let's see if we can get them on screen here. We have AH. I don't know who AH is, but welcome. Thank you for joining. Cindy is here as well. Welcome, Cindy. And Carl's waves. I wave back. Because, and the reason why I highlight that is the point of this. This is meant to be an interactive show. This is not, Sleuth TV Live is here to chat. We're here to chat, to work together about DORA metrics. We're all on this journey. We're all going from not really knowing what our team is doing to actually having metrics to prove it, and improvements that we're making to make everybody more successful, more powerful, more efficient. And so we need that interaction. So if you're watching this live, please join in the chat. We have quite a few other folks. Let me bring them in here. We have Katie saying hello. Michael giving a ghosty thing. I'm not sure what that emoji is. I'm not up on the emojis. I'm 45. That's my excuse, anyways. Kyrie says hello, and Mandagar, I think I got that right, says a peace right back at you, my friend. Please join in the chat. This is meant to be, as I said, back and forth, and now we're just going with all the crazy emojis. Give me your favorite emoji. I guess that should be my question for the day. Give me your favorite emoji. I want to see what crazy thing, but you have to also then tell me right afterwards what it means, because otherwise I'm just going to look at it and have no idea. If you're watching this live, please join in not only the discussions of sharing your favorite emoji, but also asking questions, because today I'm very excited. We have a very special guest. As I said, we're going to be talking about DORA metrics. We're going to be talking about how to improve your DORA metrics with a new goals feature that Sleuth has developed. But we're also going to be hearing from a customer. We have Matt, who's going to be joining us a little bit later, to come in to give his perspective on things. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask them at any time. If you have comments, if you like something, if you don't like something, let us know in chat. Let's discuss it. Let's make this interactive. If you were watching this on the replay, then a couple things. Number one, please feel free to comment. We always love comments. Number two, if you look down below, you should see different chapter sections. So please feel free to skip me rambling in the beginning and go straight to the good stuff or whatever you're interested in looking at. Without further ado, let's go to the next slide. Oh, we have one more for all of us. Woo woo. I like it. We always need the woo people. What are they called in the old Apple keynotes? I think they were called like woo boys or woo kids or something like that. Whenever Steve Jobs would say something, you go, woo. It was funny. I was just at Atlassian Team Conference, and there was one person trying to be the woo section for the keynotes for Atlassian. It didn't quite catch on, but I admire their effort. Anyways, so the next part of the show. So we've talked about why we're here. We're here to talk about DORA metrics. We're here to talk about how to track and improve those DORA metrics. But before we get to our very special guest of Matt, I wanted to take a quick look at what has shipped in the product. So We have been busy, as you might guess, over in Sleuthland. Now, this is probably the Sleuth UI that for all the Sleuth folks out there that you might be familiar with. You can see our beautiful sea of gray because we love various shades of gray. That is kind of a Sleuth thing. But not everyone loves seas of gray, weirdly enough. And so there is a very great story behind this next feature. So I'm going to show the feature and then I'm going to tell you the story because I found the story to be probably even better than the feature itself. So the feature is this. If you go into it, you now can change the theme. So I can make it dark mode. And so for all of you out there who can't stand to have bright shades of gray blasting them in the retinas, then this feature is for you. Now, the story that I alluded to earlier, the best part about this was not initiated by our product team or even our developers. This was something where we would have some meetings, and I admit I might have said a few words that some might consider complaining about how our product is just so white, and I use dark mode, and why can't we do dark mode? But that's just me whinging. However, our designer, our head designer, took it upon himself to not only do something about it, but this is the best part. He taught himself how to code and created pull requests to start getting this feature out there. So what you're looking at here is not just a feature that our devs were excited about and our customers, hopefully you guys are excited about and I'm excited about, but it was something that it motivated our designer to learn to code just so that he could start this project. And then of course we all jumped in and helped get it over the line. So big thanks out to him and all the awesome work that he did, and of course the rest of the devs for getting that in place, because I was just at a conference, a couple of them actually, doing demos in our booth, and this is just so much prettier to demo. Sea of gray, everything sea is gray, but this one, it's got kind of a bluish tint, it's got kind of a darkness to it. It's much more exciting, I think. So that's pretty exciting. We're excited about it. There's a couple other little things that shipped. It's not just about the dark mode. We did have some questions. So if you have a Sleuth setup, you might have been managing your teams of people. And one of the common, one of the common requests we had from people is, I just want some counts of how many people. Not a big thing, but we have it now. So we're listening. So please feel free to send those feedback back to us. We're always looking for ways that we can improve it. We can remove some of the rough edges. We can make this product easier for both of us. For all of us, because we're all in this together, in this DORA metrics journey of trying to take our teams and help them become more efficient, more productive, remove that friction, make them happier. That's why we're here. And that's exactly what motivated our very next feature. But you probably heard enough from me. So now it's time to bring in two people I have with me. I have Daniel, our head of product here at Sleuth, and who's going to be talking and leading us through our new goals feature. And then we also have Matt. Matt is from Rewind. We're super excited that he can join us to give us his feedback and his thoughts on things. As I said, feel free to jump in the comments, in the questions, ask them. We love having this, making this more interactive. Over to you, Daniel. Tell us what we're looking at here.
All right. Thanks, Don, for the vivid intro. And Matt, man, thank you so much for being here with us. These things can be so boring when it's just us, like trying to hoorah the feature, and it's very one-sided, and it's just like, it means so much to us and to all of our viewers when we get to hear from the voice of a real customer. So we're super excited to have you here and
Awesome.
Appreciative.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we're here today to talk about why it's so important for teams to be able to set and track their own engineering efficiency goals. And the advent of this came from hearing customer feedback along the lines of, yeah, DORA metrics are cool, and that's what we're seeing here, right? This is kind of our standard dashboard. It shows you your DORA metrics. You can see your frequency, lead time, failure rate. And we'll even show you how you stack up against the industry. So there's some, it's kind of interesting to know where we stand against our peers. But what we really want to be able to do is contextualize all this for our organization, for our teams, and for the improvement initiatives that we care about today. And so that really was the advent for our new goals dashboard. So I think though, before I dig into any of this, our viewers want to hear from you, Matt, not from me. So I'd like to just ask you to tell us a bit about yourself, your role there at Rewind, maybe how you guys have been using Sleuth so far, and kind of what your thoughts are around setting goals.
Yeah, sure. So Matt Upton, up here in Ottawa, Canada. At Rewind, I am the director of the software development team. We've been using Sleuth for, I think, about 6 months now. It actually was something that was originally introduced from our DevOps team. And really, it's something that I was missing previously. We used to use a tool called PullPanda that would give us some kind of indication, but that tool has actually been discontinued. So probably for about a year now, we've been kind of running blind, and just like having Sleuth and being able to especially watch like lead time is something that's been super valuable for me. And the goals feature, like when you first told me about it, Daniel, I was pretty excited about it, because it really kind of like how Don did the introduction, it gave us that kind of notification aspect that we were missing before, instead of like always just going back to the dashboard. So been playing with that and starting to see the value, and for myself and my leadership team as well.
Awesome. Well, one of the big questions that we were asking customers when we were first doing discovery on this feature, and I interviewed your colleague Dave on the DevOps team about this, was where would it be valuable to set these goals, right? I mean, kind of the intuitive thing is we're a DORA metrics tool, so set goals on the DORA metrics, because those are the things that you want to improve. But then at the same time, they're high level enough that they're maybe not always so actionable. And so after a lot of talking to customers, we landed on the 4 that we see here, right? So we basically broke down lead time into its different sub buckets: coding time, review lag, and review time, and deploy time, and made that the place where you can set goals, because we figured it was a little more actionable to know that a PR is approaching a review lag time goal, and what do? You tap somebody on the shoulder to ask them to review it. Maybe more useful than just knowing that you're not tracking toward hitting your overall lead time goal. So I'd be curious, Matt, are there of these lead time kind of breakdowns, are there areas of these that have been focuses for you guys? And maybe you could tell us a bit about your journey of not just setting goals around them, but how you got to the point of being able to measure them. I don't know, maybe insights that you've learned from those measurements.
Yeah, sure. Like I look at my time here at Rewind, and one thing I've noticed is like each team seems to have their own culture, I would say, within the team. So like when it comes to PR reviews and stuff, some teams are like, they'll come in first thing in the morning, they do PR reviews. Maybe some teams will do it morning and then right after lunch. And then I see other teams that are like, as soon as a PR is ready for a review, they're putting it in Slack. So I would say, like, in just looking at the various projects the various teams are on, I noticed that like the review lag time, for instance, is like really quick. Like it's very, very small for some teams, and it's larger for other ones, kind of depending on the culture in the team. But I also was kind of looking back, I've been doing this for a while. So in a previous life, there was like, this would have been so immensely useful for me to really help with like lag time, coding time. If I can just take you back to my previous team, we were going through the journey and trying to be more agile and adopting CI/CD. And I had multiple teams under me, and some of the teams were like lightning fast to do the coding, but when it came to the PRs, they were dependent on this other team that was very senior in comparison. And it was like pulling teeth trying to get them to do a PR review. So you would see, I would just imagine, I didn't have the metrics back then, but that team would be have a very long lag time in terms of like picking up the PRs. And then they were very thorough when they started doing the PRs. In contrast, the very senior team spent most of their time coming from more of waterfall methodology, a lot of time on the coding time. So just kind of reflecting back on my career, to actually have visibility and be able to kind of characterize it on a team by team basis is like immensely useful. To basically set, like we use OKRs, set OKRs to, anytime that we see that the lead time KPI would be off, we could adjust, and it would probably depend on the team because not every team operates in the same manner. So
Yeah, that's definitely I found as well, is just how different teams work. What is the problem in one team is absolutely not the problem in the other. What is the pain point in one is not in the other. And so being able to customize this per teams is kind of a table stakes thing here, because as much as like from an engineering manager with like putting my CTO hat on, I want to be like, top down and say we are all going to deploy at least once a day. We're all going to have a review time of this. We're all going to have this. In practice, it doesn't really work that way, because some teams might have more senior people like you're talking about. Some might have more juniors. Some people might be new to language. Some might be pros and have other things. Some people might be doing work that involves this crazy deep down performance optimization, and they're just not going to be shipping things that frequently, or they're just not going to be having these quick reviews because the reviews are so complicated. It takes so much work to get into it. So being able to kind of adjust, and I think that's what I love about this goals thing, is it's not the number. I was talking to one of the guys who is on the DORA team itself, and he was like, what matters of DORA metrics isn't the number. It's not make sure you hit this or make sure you hit that. It's make sure that you're improving from your previous. And I think that's where an important thing that's often missed is people think, oh, it's all about I need to be elite or I need to be high category and then I'm good. No, you're not good. You could be elite, and if you're not improving, then you're kind of missing the point. The whole point is that you're always looking to get better. You're always trying to make it a little bit smoother for your team.
Yeah, I think that's actually it's a great point, because it doesn't just highlight the need to be able to set the goals per team and have them be different per team, but also even knowing what good should be for each of those teams, right? And we've tried to address that a bit here with the suggested goals, right? And I think to your point, Don, about it's really about just being better than you were yesterday. That's what you see here. So in our coding time goal on this dashboard, this is what it looks like when you first come to the dashboard and you haven't done anything. Sleuth has basically taken your historical data and then calculated from that a goal that's basically, it's the average of that history reduced by 10%. So it's just a modest improvement trying to drive you toward being, better tomorrow than you were yesterday. But I think that kind of giving teams a place to start, because it's one thing to measure, but to kind of have some guidance on what the target for good should be given your particular team, your particular processes. We hope will be a valuable way for customers to get started here.
If I can chime in on that, Daniel, one thing I noticed, and like just with respect to teams, like you may have the team that's they've got the trophy and they're doing very well, but one of the things that in software organizations I've noticed over the years is we tend to reorg a lot, and we've seen that here at Rewind, where we've got a new team and a lot of the team members are coming up to speed in new areas of the code, working in services that they haven't worked in before, and that really reflects in some of the metrics, and we're starting to see that. So really what I'm looking for is that trend over time that you were talking about, to see how the team does as they become more familiar with these new areas of the code to them.
Yeah, so another thing you touched on it at the very beginning there, Matt. But in addition to wanting to allow for customers to set these custom goals and by team and give the suggestions for where to set those targets, we wanted to also do what we could to help them actually achieve the goals that they set. And so a big part of this feature is that for any one of these goals, you have the option of enabling some Slack notifications. And there are a couple of flavors of this, right? So you can kind of set up your own notification schedule, or we have a canned one, where it sends out the first notice when you're at 75% of your goal and another at 95%. But the idea here is that, Sleuth is able to kind of preemptively tap you on the shoulder to let you know that a PR is starting to approach this target that you've set, so that you can maybe, be reminded to put down the thing you're coding and start a review or whatever the action is. But I'd be curious to get your take, because we knew from the beginning, this was something that was like, it had the potential to be very powerful and very useful. And it also had the potential to be totally annoying and a turnoff, right? To everyone, feel big brothery and just feel like spam. So I'm curious to get your thoughts, as you kind of are looking toward maybe setting up some of these goals in Sleuth. Do you think that you'll turn on notifications like this? And maybe you could give us a little bit of color on, how you think you might use them, or goals you might use them for, and other goals where maybe, you feel like they wouldn't be quite as valuable.
Yeah, sure. This is actually what I really liked about it, because through my time here at Rewind, sometimes we set these metrics at the leadership level, and like, okay, we want to achieve like a lead time of X, and we communicate maybe in a town hall. But like for the developers, they're the ones that are really influencing like how we're tracking against that. Out of sight, out of mind, really. And so one of the things that I liked about this is like the whole team is always in Slack and stuff like that. So it gives it visibility to the team. So, we'll communicate it, but then they're seeing it on a daily basis. And that's going to make a huge difference in terms of like actually influencing the metric and trying to hit our targets. On the other hand, going back to the flexibility of like doing it on a project by project basis and setting these goals, like different teams are going to be in different, they're good. Like just having a single goal across the entire organization for lead time is great. And that's how we used to measure it. But being able to customize it for the various teams, like for instance, the team I just mentioned that was newly formed and working in new areas, they're in a different spot than a team that's been established and working together for a long period of time. And having those goals that are customizable for the various teams is immensely useful.
Yeah. We had enough preoccupation, I'll say, about that feature and how it was going to land, that we spent a lot of time. I should have mentioned at the top of this, actually, what we're looking at here. This is all Sleuth. This is what I mean to say is it's our metrics for our product Sleuth, right? So we measure our own engineering efficiency, and so the goals that you're seeing here are the ones that our team set, and we wanted to make sure that they were actually using and experiencing these Slack notifications for a good bit of time before we made them available. And I know, Matt, we made them available for you guys as part of our beta program as well. But Don in particular is a really big proponent of us dog fooding. And I think this was just a great example where we didn't get it right to start. We had, for example, with this thing I mentioned about the smart escalation schedule. This used to include a third notification that channeled the channel that it was plugged into. And we thought, that's a cool idea. It's getting like progressively louder, progressively noisier as you get closer and closer to the goal. And that thing was just a nightmare. I mean, the team hated it. And, we quickly reswizzled and redesigned it into what it is now. But I just thought it was a cool story to be there as the product manager, kind of watching that happen and getting that live feedback from our teams. I'm super lucky as a product manager that our customers are engineers, because I've got a whole team of voice of customer right here within Sleuth. But yeah, I'll be super interested to hear how that pans out as you start actually rolling some of these notifications out to your teams there.
Yeah. In fact, like just on that third notification, that was like some feedback I gave you as well, that it was like, okay, there's a lot of noise here, and I really appreciate that you rolled it back to 2. I think that's much better from my perspective as well. As we rolled this out, like as it was in beta, like right now I've rolled it out to my management team, but like just kind of in a private channel, but definitely looking forward to when we can roll it out to more of the team.
Yeah, just to say something on the Slack notifications, it's definitely something you can get wrong, as Daniel points out, but it is something that it's a pain, but it's important pain, I guess is what I'm saying. Because, as you were saying, your devs they're not going to go visit another dashboard. As excited as you are about this new tool that does this thing and you can visit it and get all this information, if it's not required in my current day-to-day, and if it's not taking work off my plate, you're just wanting to add something on, a dev is almost never going to do that. It has to be something that helps them. And so something that says, hey, your team is starting to drift a little bit too far on the review time, it's starting to get a little crazy, you might want to pay attention to it. That's actionable. That's something that helps your team not only get better, but know when they're getting too far. Because, we talk about like doing retros, for example. That's a key part of Agile, is doing retros where you look back and say, are we still kind of going in the way we're going? And what often can happen on a retro is you're dependent on that one person who really is annoyed by this and always brings up the reviews are taking too long. We need to get better. And if that person's not there, it doesn't get brought up. So it's good that that person's there. But on the other hand, that person, they always get to be the person that's whining. And that kind of sucks too. It always sucks to feel like if no one does it, no one does it, then it's up on me. But I'm always being negative, and I don't want to be negative. So it puts a person, I think, in an awkward situation. And this is where we're starting, not with this project and some other ones, is looking at ways that we can replace a person from having to be the bad guy to a tool being the bad guy, so to speak.
Blame it on the robot.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, the tools come in, and it's kind of, how we do with linters, for example. We have linters that tell us all the problems with our code. And that takes it away from a person having to do this. And now the robot do it. So why not have it do it for our goals? Why not have it do it when our review time is getting far? Why not have it do it all these other things we care about, but we don't want to? But it's annoying to have a person be always complaining about it.
Yeah, for sure. Matt, we touched a little bit at the beginning on kind of, setting these goals at that DORA level where they may not be so actionable in the ways that, Don's describing. Like, I probably don't want to nobody wants to get notifications that you're, drifting from your frequency goal, because it's just kind of high level. But I did hear from customers that MTTR was a top level goal that a lot of them did seem interested in, maybe having some notifications in tracking. And I know that you guys historically have tracked MTTR as an OKR. I'm curious if that's something that you'd like to see maybe as a future goal that we'd implement here, and also if you have thoughts on others, right? I mean, this is just the start, these 4 lead time buckets. We've had ideas around, sending you goals as you have expanding environment drift. There's any number of things that we could do. But I'm curious if you have anything kind of on your wish list for additional goals that you might like to be able to track in Sleuth.
Yeah. Just like thinking back over the years, with some of my teams, like batch size is something that I've seen, like that we would just have like massive commits in some of my teams, and it's just one of these things that just really slows everything down. So to me, that would be something that would be very interesting. The way we have it divided up here at Rewind is like MTTR and like failure rate. That's more tracked on the DevOps side. So of course I'm still interested in it, but Dave would definitely be probably more interested in that, because that's kind of on his plate. Whereas like frequency and lead time, those are the sort of things that I'm looking at. So anything around like the batch size in the DORA frequency metric would be an interesting goal to set for me personally and for my team.
Cool. Yeah, and in the meantime too, I'll just remind everyone that we do also have this work in progress feature that was released not long ago, that speaks to some of that, right? This starts to highlight certain risks in your work in progress, including items that are high batch size, so that you can get out in front of them and address them before they become the subject of a retro, right? So Matt too, I think just in general, you'd shared a little bit with me that you guys had started to adopt some of this work in progress dashboard. Do you have any feedback or anything you'd like to share around your sort of early usage of this?
Yeah, like the way, like prior to us actually having Sleuth, like what a lot of my engineering managers would do is go into the various repos that they were responsible for their projects in GitHub, and like basically go and monitor each one individually. Love the work in progress because you can kind of aggregate it all. So like, to me, this is one of the most useful features, is to be able to quickly look and see kind of if anything's going off track, and without having to go into every individual repo. So and just the way you can kind of slice it and dice it and filter by teams. And it could be that one of the engineering managers is responsible for a particular project, but there's other teams that are contributing into that. So just how you can filter based on teams is like very useful from my perspective. So you can really, there are some things that that may impact the metrics. And let me give you an example, actually. We have like an application security team. So they're doing a lot of like the upgrades, and it results in this big chain of dependencies. And when they do that, you're going to get like one of these large batch sizes that, normally it might skew the metrics a little bit, but I can kind of filter that out by, identifying that it's actually, something that's happening in the background and not one of the core features that we're working on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, the work in progress feature was kind of our first step into really trying to move into what's become now like a laser focus on actionability, right? So Sleuth for a long time has been a really powerful tool for measuring your baseline, measuring whether your improvements are having an effect. And we are super dedicated now to providing everything in between, tools to actually improve. And so, this work in progress that identifies your risks so you can get out in front of them, the goals feature that doesn't just let you sort of look at where you are on a dashboard, but proactively sending out those Slack notifications. And Don started to hint out earlier this concept of linting, and we've been thinking a lot about that in terms of new tooling that we could offer for things like PR checks that are managed from within Sleuth that can essentially lint your pull request process and kind of guarantee the quality of those PRs before they move forward. And we've got a whole host of other things coming down the pipe along this initiative that we're calling Actions to Improve. But Don, I was wondering if you might want to share a little bit more around where we are right now with this upcoming kind of PR check idea.
Yeah, I'll take a step back and just say, kind of as how I was saying before, where when you think about how you want to improve things, one thing that I think there's a great lesson in how the linters work today is they take a whole set of problems off a person and put it onto a tool to monitor and to track and to complain, so a person doesn't have to. And so kind of going down that road, we thought, we could be doing linting, but for processes, and not just for processes. We could even go so far as to lint your process in the pull request. One thing that almost everyone does, and I think we were talking earlier, Matt, that you have some of these things set up, these different checks that say you can't merge until this, you can't merge until there's one approver, can't merge until these different things happen. And I think we've kind of dabbled into this. Everybody has like a couple that they put into place. Maybe it is a required approver. That one's usually pretty standard. Maybe it is certain build runs. Maybe it's you don't have too many of this, or maybe the title has to match a certain pattern. But I think there's a lot more that we could do. I think we're really just scratching the surface of all the things that when a developer goes into a pull request, just particularly detail-oriented developers will have a checklist in their mind of it should be this, it should be this, it should be this. Again, the same thing we've already had with code, right? Which is there should be one space after this, should be no spaces here. We should have variables not with one word. All these things that every developer felt it was their responsibility to enforce consistency, particularly when you feel responsibility. Why can't we take those things out of the developer's head and put them into a tool, and then now enforce that process where each team can customize whatever makes sense? Because I know, Matt, we were talking before about there's all kinds of things you can enforce, but some teams only want this, some teams want that. You can't just say, here's 400 PR rules, everybody go and do it. So Matt, you were talking about some of the checks that you had in place. Maybe you could kind of tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. Definitely there's some rules around like the number of PR reviewers, also like the teams that need to review it. So we have like this code ownership where certain parts of the code are owned by individual teams, and in a perfect world they'd always work on those features, but in the real world there's other teams that are contributing to that. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that the team that actually owns the project or the repos they have eyes on these PRs. Another interesting one that actually came up that we don't have any rules for is like putting a ticket number, enforcing a ticket number to be, in every time you've got a PR. And part of the reason why we actually struggled with this recently is we have like some SOC 2 compliance. We have yearly audits that we do. And the poor DevOps team is actually responsible for like providing evidence on, like, okay, this push to production was a result of this ticket. Now, if you're missing that piece of data in the ticket, it's a nightmare for them to actually produce that evidence. So just like that simple rule would have saved hours and hours of some very talented people that are going through GitHub trying to find trying to match up tickets to PRs. So that's one that like struck me as like, okay, that would be very useful.
Yeah. I think and again, that just goes back to the different ways. Like I was talking to another team, they don't even really use issues. They just do everything in pull requests, but then they'll label pull requests with like, is this a bug? Is this a feature? Whatever, and use that to drive how they understand what work is going toward what things. But if somebody forgets to put that ticket in there or that label on the pull request, then then it goes through and now you can't classify it. So again, and somebody has to go in and complain, and someone has to make sure they're watching every pull request and say, hey, you forgot to do this, you forgot to do this. So again, the more we can take that off a person's plate and put it onto the tool, it just reduces friction. That just means that the team is able to focus on what matters, delivering value, and not on the minutia of we have a process and you're not following the process, and we have a standard and you're not following the standard. Nobody enjoys that. But we all enjoy a standard being followed, and we all enjoy consistency. And that's a funny thing. I was thinking about like code reviews or code formatting. Nowadays most languages use a code formatter to make everyone have the same format. Almost everybody hates the format that it's done, but the value of having that standardization way overrides the annoyance of it doing the wrong thing. Like we just want to not think about code formatting. I don't want to think about tabs for spaces or brackets on new lines. I just want it to go away. And so these kind of tools can help there.
Yeah, I'm especially excited for the places where we can do really unique ones, right? Because you can build PR checks and GitHub Actions or some of the native repo tools. But given where we sit in the stack, we can do, I think, some pretty cool things like preventing a pull request merge when it's destined for a target environment that we know is unhealthy, because we have visibility into your observability tools, your CI/CD platform, your repo, everything else. So I think those are the places where we'll hopefully shine in that whole area. But it's a lot of stuff to come for sure.
I'm so excited about all the things we can do because we know drift between different environments. A GitHub action is have no idea if something's deployed in staging and production. Sleuth knows that. Sleuth knows the health of those things. Sleuth is tracking all these SLIs, SLOs, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so there's exciting things. And you're probably hearing us going on and on about it because we're very excited about it. But I don't want that to overshadow how excited we're about goals. Going back to goals. That one, just to people like, what the hell did I tune into? This is supposed to be about goals, because I think goals is really kind of the first step. The first step is in some ways, the first step is you get those metrics in so you know your numbers. But then goals start you down that path of improvement. And I think that's where once you start down that path, that's when the excitement happens. Once you start saying, okay, our goal is not to get a number, but our goal is to improve the number, that's when the creative juices can really start going and saying, what if we improve our pull requests? What if we do this? What if we do this? And then that's when devs, once you give a developer a set of constraints and say your job is to optimize this, boy, that's when they get excited, and that's when they just start innovating, and that's when they start, we could do this, we could do this. So we're definitely excited about this, but I think it all starts with that goals. It all starts with saying this is not a number we're trying to achieve. This is something we're always trying to improve, and goals is a great way to do that and to bring in the whole team into that. Matt, where do you see your next steps on this?
Actually, I just wanted to touch on that comment. Like, I really like the fact how you said, like it's really a tool to enable the teams versus like a top-down measurement. We're measuring you, and it's really, if I can't give that to the team, like something to actually be able to improve, it's like yelling into a vacuum. Like it's very difficult if we're just saying, and that's where we were coming from, where we were just measuring it on a monthly basis, not even on like a regular basis. But I love the fact that it's actually giving the team the tools to look and see, okay, well, where in the lead time metric are we going wrong? Like, and so to me, that was, the thing that was exciting about like goals is that we can set targets for each of the teams there.
Yeah, and I think some people might set long-term targets, tie into KPIs. Other people might say, this is really more to set like a worst case, which is, if we ever get too far out of this, and let us know, otherwise it should never fire. Again, it's a tool. Tools are not meant to be used in one way, like I use a flathead screwdriver to do all kinds of things it wasn't really meant to do, but it's pretty damn handy. So, there is kind of that aspect of like, these are things for you to do something with. They're not just something to sit on a tool shelf somewhere and be like, ooh, look, it's pretty. This is meant to be something that gets scratched, that gets dented, that gets stepped on, because you're using it to do something.
And when tools come together, and they can become greater than the sum of their parts, right? So one last thing I actually forgot to show here, but I think as you were talking about the spikes or the bottlenecks, you set a goal, right? You see that there was a day we really missed the goal. The next thing you want to do is, well, why, right? And so these actually drill through and have a really nice seamless connection to kind of the standard Sleuth metrics use case, where you can go in and start doing your sleuthing and looking at the deploys that were there for that day. So just to say, I think there is also too this emergent value, right? As you start to bring these tools together, they become greater than the sum of their parts.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just want to make one point on that one. Is just having a number is not good enough, because you need to know where that came from. You need to know why that is. And that's where, I think we did spend a lot of time saying, we can't just tell someone like they're getting worse and then say, good luck figuring that out, but I can tell you you're bad. It's like, well, that's not useful. I want to know, why am I getting worse? I want to know what's holding me up. Is it one thing? Is it 5 things? Do we have a trend? Is it, you just kind of do that analysis. So the more you can drill down, the more you can create trust in the tool, and the more you can just turn that into actions. One thing I forgot to call out, and I know we're about out of time, but we never gave a chance for anyone to ask any questions of Matt. The chat has been very quiet. We had a lot of activity in the beginning, crazy emojis that I have not seen before. I'm still trying to figure out what Michael Knighton's blue monster yelling thing means. I'm sure I'm going to get schooled on that after this. But if anyone has any questions for Matt, anything that I'm curious about his use of Sleuth, how about goals, maybe for Daniel about how goals are going to be used, please feel free to ask those in the chat. And Daniel, I guess one of my questions, just to kind of start that off, is what do you think, what exactly is happening next on goals? Because I know that for example, we turn on one part, but not another part. Maybe you could say a little bit about that.
We actually did turn on the whole kit and caboodle. So
okay,
yeah, that was going back to some of that the internal feedback that we were getting around, like we didn't know if we had quite hit the mark on the tuning of those Slack notifications. And so we were still kind of wondering. We made some changes a couple of days ago. We've been letting them soak internally, and we just really wanted to get that internal dev feedback. And we were close to just keeping the smart escalations piece out of the release and doing it as a fast follow. But that's actually there. We managed to hit the mark. Everyone's happy, and yeah, we're really excited to be able to include that as part of the initial release. So I'd say next for goals, we want to enable some additional goals, right? So we kind of touched on I think at this point pretty high on the backlog are being able to set goals for MTTR and doing something around drift, because it's just such a cool thing that we're able to do. So we're not only able to quantify your drift between environments. We can say that production is 2 days ahead of staging. We could also say production is 3 deploys ahead, or 5 PRs ahead, or 10 commits, right? We have all those different ways of measuring it. And so we could let you set goals around, minimizing that drift, notifying you when you've gotten to within that goal, and then also delivering this really nice view that we have in Sleuth that shows you all the content that is different between the 2 environments, so that it's very actionable. So I think just because it's like some special sauce of ours, it's one that I'd really like to see us be able to set goals around. The other thing that we have talked about too, though, is being able to, we've been calling these goal expression types, right? But right now, when you set a goal, it's basically a horizontal line. We'd like to be able to do kind of more OKR-based goals, where you can say that what I want to do is achieve, a review lag time of X by date Y, and have a downward sloping or downward curving goal line where each day, the bar gets a little bit more difficult, right, to achieve the goal. Because we think that'll be a really interesting way to make this less about kind of guardrails and more about really driving continuous improvement.
Nice.
I like that. Yeah, that's nice.
Matt, I have a question for you. So one of the things that, kind of we alluded to earlier is, people there's always usually a champion that kind of gets excited about DORA metrics and says, this will be really useful for my team, and gets it in there. And one thing I have heard from some of those champions is they have a challenge of how to spread that to other people in the org. How do we get other people? You want to give them all copies of the Accelerate book and tell them to go read it, and everyone's going to read it and love it. In practice, that's not exactly how it turns out. Maybe you could talk to me a little bit about your DevOps adoption journey and how you got buy-in in your company.
Yeah, well, I must say I'm very lucky. I joined this company, and it was kind of baked into the culture from day one, which is not always the case for a lot of companies. Like, speaking back to my previous company, we were making that that journey and really moving from a waterfall type model to agile and trying to get CI/CD in place. And that's quite a different journey than it has been here. Now, it's funny you mentioned like Accelerate. It is actually mandatory reading for all of like myself and my direct reports, the leadership team on the software side. But within the organization, that's where I see the value of goals and creating that visibility to the individual developers and the team leads and stuff. It just enables them to see kind of what's happening there. But so I feel like by exposing that, it's really going to, the team is going to adopt it and be able to, build that improvement and improve on those goals versus being very top down. It's going to be, they can see what's going off the rails, so to speak.
Yep, that makes sense. Looks like we do have one question before we go from Katie, and she asks, would you be able to share more about how you think your teams will rally around goals on a day-to-day basis in the real world? You kind of talked about how goals you think is kind of that way to bring in other people. Could you talk a little bit more about like how that changes, your day-to-day, your week-to-week, some of your key rituals? How do you see that happening?
Yeah, I could definitely see something like lag time being really improving as people have visibility of it. Right now, like I said, each team has their own type of rituals and like how they do PR reviews. And I just think when they see like a review lag and they say, okay, like our overall lead time goal is X, say 24 hours or 48 hours. When you start to see the breakdown and you're like, wow, like half of that time is being spent on like nothing happening, just review lag. I think that would change how people go about like PRs, and maybe they do it once a day, like every morning. And they're like, oh, well, maybe if I just do it after lunch, we're improving our overall lead time KPI, really from just changing some of the day-to-day behaviors. So, but I really want that to come from the team. Like if I'm saying you must do this, it's never going to fly. So that's what, the power of goals is, to really have it from the bottom up, and the team understanding what our goal is for lead time, and then figuring out, okay, what are the, the breadcrumb of sub KPIs that will help them achieve that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that bottoms up thing, I feel like cannot be emphasized enough, just how important that is. You're thinking that DORA metrics or something you're going to put in place, and the execs are going to look at it, but you're not going to bother the teams with it. Maybe you'll be successful. I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say you have a greater chance as the more you can get people involved at that lower level, particularly if your goal is to improve those things. It looks like chat is what's it, birds of a feather or whatever. Like, I'm a procrastinator, and it looks like chat's a procrastinator too, because now we're getting a bunch of questions right at the end. Which, really, is there any better way to do something than right at the end? So let's honor their procrastination. AH has a question. Are goals using goals so far, have you noticed them improving or affecting your DORA metrics, or is it too early to tell? I think we turned the beta on for you just a few weeks ago or so. So I'm not sure how much you can provide here, but we'd like to hear your perspective.
Yeah, as Daniel mentioned, there was like those 3 notifications that would come, and it was a lot of noise at first. So since there was some changes that the team had done that improved it, Like, so it's not quite as noisy. So I would say it's probably too early to say. But I definitely find that it's, you know, it's more manageable now with just those 2 smart notifications. That's what we're using, smart notifications versus custom. But yeah, I'm kind of looking forward. And as I said, right now, it's just my management team and myself that are getting this in a Slack channel. I look forward to, like, as soon as we kind of get things all set up properly and then kind of roll it out to the engineering team.
Makes sense. It's the joys of joining in a beta program, right? Get all the rough
Yeah.
edges, the early access, and then all the little bits along the way. AH also has another question. Are you evaluating developer experience alongside these goals when evaluating success or failure? It sounds like, I mean, not to answer for you, but it did sound like it is, in the sense that, like, you're trying to gradually roll these out because you want to make sure that your devs are getting involved at the right time with the right type of notifications. Maybe you can say more about that.
Yeah, no, exactly. It kind of goes to the bottoms up. Really, you know, telling the team, you know, we've got this organizational goal on lead time, and then letting the team use the tool as an enabler to reach those goals. So I'm very much about, you know, enabling the team to work towards these versus, you know, kind of forcing something.
Yeah, it's definitely something where you want to, you know, usually the carrot is more persuasive than the stick on that one. And so the more that you can find ways that, you know, they're benefiting from this, and I think goals help them to see that. Hey, see, like, get visibility on lag time, which they probably already know is a problem. There's just something about putting a number to it and saying, look, it is this bad. This is not right. And then people can make changes. But if you can't see the effect of your changes, then you kind of lose some of the motivation. But once you see the effect, then it creates this little feedback cycle, and you get that dopamine hit when you're like, oh, I made the graph go down, and we're going to hit our goal, or, you know, whatever the case may be. Yeah, that's definitely been our experience as well. Well, I wanted to thank you, Matt, for coming on. Thank you, Daniel, for spending time to go through the product. That has been super interesting. I always love these kind of live shows. Like, we always debate, like, should we record these beforehand and then we get it all right, and we get the audio and we get the video, and then we can edit it in all fancy ways. But I just kind of love the liveness where you just sit down and you just got to start talking. And if you lose your train of thought, well, crap, you got to figure it out and go. And you're like, you have that live interaction. Like, by the way, none of this is scripted. There was no, like, we have 5 questions we're asking Matt, and that's been approved by his PR team, and it's been approved by our PR team, and then we go back. Like, this is just all discussion. And I hope
it would have been less stressful.
Would it have been less stressful? Oh, but
No,
not as much fun. Come on. We love the banter and
I'm just kidding.
like all these things. Like, Matt, I give him these, like, this giant question that he's never even thought of before, and he's like, well, crap. I guess I'll come up with an answer real quick. So I love that about that. So thank you, Matt, for being a willing participant in our chat and our interaction. Because, again, I feel like we're all on this journey of improving our teams. We're all having this pressure of the economy and pressure of downsizing and all these things going on. And so the best way for us to survive this is really kind of band together and to share what's working, share what's not, share any kind of cool tools. And so this being an opportunity to have those kind of discussions across different companies, I think is really valuable. Very valuable for me, hopefully very valuable for you and the audience. As I said, please feel free to ask questions. We'll make sure they get answered in the comments of this video. And let us know kind of what other things you're looking forward to. But thanks again for joining. And thank you again, Matt, for being part of it, and Daniel for doing it. And we'll be chatting again next time. See you then.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. And send us your feedback on this too. We love to hear it. So yeah, thanks, guys.
Feedback, the better. All right.